Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another live stream here at Sergeant Tank. My name is Jeremy. If you guys are new to the channel, we put out, I want to say, about 250 videos since we've been here actually creating content for you guys on the platform. A lot of our content is geared towards more intermediate to advanced Aquarius, but that doesn't mean that we don't share things to the beginner Aquarius as well. It's really about equal opportunity, and hopefully we can bring you guys some insight and inspiration behind whatever it is that you're doing in your aquarium fish keeping endeavors. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about something that I have a great passion about and something that I definitely have enjoyed, especially here in 2018. Go over a few of the species that that I personally have BAP'd or provided to the Breeders' Award program. So I'll go ahead and if you guys are watching this in the replay, I'll go ahead and link it right up here. You guys can definitely check it out. Within our repertoire videos, we also have a playlist talking about the importance of joining a local aquarium club and talking about BAP and HAP when it comes to things like that. So we'll give it a few minutes here as we usually do. Let a few folks filter in since this is another impromptu live stream. I had a few minutes here. I know that Dwayne Kitchell, so if you guys don't follow Dwayne's been around in the hobby for many years. I highly suggest that you check it out. And we'll go ahead and head over there. I would anticipate he plans on doing his normal live stream, usually around 3:45, 4 o'clock. So whenever he gets the his live stream going, then I definitely encourage you guys to go over there and check it out and pick his brain, because somebody like that that's been in the hobby for many years has a wealth of knowledge. So we will be going over some of the species that I've bred. I can share with you guys some tips and tricks based on that. There may be some of the ones I mentioned, I might point you in a direction of a video that I've already created. So don't take it the wrong way if that's the case. But if it's something I've already gone into depth on, then I'll go ahead and direct you guys to that source for more information. So we don't spend a ton of time. I don't really want to drag it out too much today with regard to how do you go about breeding this specific species, that type of stuff. We'll try to get some more content in 2019 for you guys when it comes to tutorials on breeding. It's just a matter of putting the time into it to be able to edit something that's going to be effective enough for you guys in order to enjoy it, as well as be able to get the best understanding that you can, depending on what species that is. All right. So we have Aquarium Thoughts in the house. How you doing, buddy? We got Daryl Deemer. We got Kevin KG Cichlids, probably at work, stopping by to say hello. We got Eric B. Friday Fish Facts, Placo Nation. Thanks so much, Placo Nation. I really appreciate it. That's my most important thing of why I do what I do, is to be able to try to bring you guys some insight and inspiration behind this amazing hobby. M. How 9, how you doing, buddy? We got Frank Dominguez. Always nice seeing you, Frank. So the floor is pretty much open. If you guys have any specific questions for me, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up if audio and video and all of that seems to be coming through okay for you guys. And yeah, so I hope everything is going well with you guys, not only in life, but also as far as this hobby. So we got Spencer Hawk in the house. How you doing? Let's see. Looks and sounds good for me. Right on. And I'll try not to, I'm trying to consciously be aware of the fact, because the way I have my camera set up in this studio portion, if I even bump the desk that we're utilizing right now is pretty lightweight. So I do apologize. It's not a camera issue. It's my fault if it's kind of shaky. That's me bumping the desk. So I'll try to be consciously aware of the fact that that can be a bit annoying. So when I've gone back and edited these, I've noticed, and again, 101, make sure that you put your phone on vibe. I got actually two. We got one for our home and my own personal cell phone. And I thought I put the one which nobody ever calls that we utilize for home purposes on mute. However, I didn't do it with my own personal phone, so I apologize about that. So, all right, should be good to go now. I got my mother in the house. How you doing? She said, "Hello, good looking." Well, I appreciate that. We got Kevin Hyatt. How you doing, buddy? It's always nice seeing you. We got Denny. Is it close? Is that how you say it? If I'm saying that correct. I don't know if I've seen you around in the chat, but thank you so much for joining. We have Angelo in the house. I know that this is a bit of a change because you used to me doing a very late night live stream. So like 12, 1 o'clock our time, which is we're on Eastern time. All right. So why don't we go ahead and get things kind of going along here? If anybody is just joining in, what I'm going to be talking about is in regard to we actually have our meeting tonight. So that's why I thought it was an appropriate time to go ahead and address with you guys. Unfortunately, if you guys have been following the last few live streams that I've done here, is I've talked about the Breeders' Award program. I've talked about our club, which is the Grand Valley Aquarium Club. And I definitely, again, I can't put enough emphasis on the importance of joining a local club just due to the fact that it's invaluable information, literally for the cost of a price ticket for an entire family. With most of these clubs, especially here in the U.S., that's literally the cost of it, and it'll pay your way for that membership for the entire year. And there's a lot of perks that go along with it as well. Not only raffles that they do through the club, swap meets, auctions, other events that they may put on based on, if it's like a convention. We just put on the American Library Association convention back in May. And there's a lot of great opportunities there to meet other hobbyists and veteran aquarists that have been in the hobby for many, many years. So, and then they bring in a lot of guest speakers and that type of stuff. And these speakers, again, are very well-informed and very knowledgeable individuals. So again, I can't put enough importance in, and it's unfortunate for the folks that don't necessarily have a club in their area. So I couldn't imagine that. I'm fortunate enough. And one of the things I am happy I jumped on that bandwagon and started doing was the BAP and HAP programs, just due to the fact that I enjoy to do it. So especially the Breeders' Award program. So I officially joined our club back in 2017. It was either the end of 2016, end of 2017. I have been to swap meets, and I've actually been there. I've set up a table. However, at that time, just logistically dealing with family and other priorities, it was difficult for me to commit. And now being on the board myself, it's definitely an honor and a privilege for me to be a part of making some important decisions and being a part of that process. So again, there is a lot of opportunities for you guys if you really get in and realize the importance of a club. And one of the importance of doing what I'm going to be talking about here and kind of pointing out my top 3 species that I bred here in 2018 with regards specifically to the program and the importance is really what it does. It provides a lot of insight and basis behind what it is that you're breeding. And one of the requirements that I talked about, you can check it out in my repertoire videos, but like I said, I do have a playlist. So you guys, I highly recommend that you do check it out. There's a lot of good information that presented in there with regard to the BAP and HAP rules. And one of the criterias that our club specifically requires in other clubs globally is having to write an article based on something within the hobby that can be published in an article. So through like your newsletter, let's say through your club. And when I was sharing a few weeks back the BAP criteria and a lot of the rules that go along with it, I was kind of getting some feedback where individuals are like, yeah, I'll just stick with breeding, doing what I'm doing. And that's really what separates people who just want to breed. And that was me for a lot of years before I got involved with the program, because what it does is when you actually bring in something, auction it off in order to obtain those BAP points, following all the criteria, which there is a lot of criteria that has to go into it. And that's to ensure that you are doing everything that you're supposed to as a hobbyist, to ensure that you realize first and foremost what it is that you're actually bringing in. So when somebody obtains that through an auction, let's say, they know what they're dealing with. And then you can share your knowledge, you can share your experience on how you actually got to the point to breeding that species. And it really opens the doorway to a whole nother conversation. And that's really what I enjoy about the program. And it's amazing to see all the various species that individuals bring in. Same thing with plants. And our club, again, very fortunate to, just from that standpoint of having the opportunity where people breed a lot of different species. And I personally, and something I put emphasis on, and something that we do through sergeanttank.com, is ensure that we are breeding good captively bred species of fish in order to provide to people here in the U.S. And ensure that they acclimatize and that they're conditioned in a way to make it as least stressful, most importantly on the pet, the fish, and then on the individual who's obtaining them. And if you want to know more about acclimatizing and conditioning, again, I will link a video after this is done down in the description for you guys. I highly recommend that you check it out. So a lot of this stuff that I've talked about here up to this point, I do have in video form. We have over 250 videos. I had over 500 at one point. I took about 250 plus down, just due to the fact that I didn't feel that they were going to provide enough information. So over time, a lot of times when I do live streams, if it's more general Q&A and there's really not a topic base, I don't always upload those. And I know some people get a little discouraged with that because I don't upload it, but ultimately it does hinder the channel depending on what it is, how I can try to rank that video, that type of stuff. And I'm not the only one that does it. There's other individuals that do it as well. And if you're a content creator and you've been putting out content for any period of time, you would understand what I'm talking about. And it doesn't mean I completely just wipe them where I'm completely deleting it. What I mean is a lot of them I just hold private to where I can view it. And if I decide to try to edit it later on down the road, then I can go ahead and still do that. All right. So my top 3 species that I've bred here in the fish rooms, my favorite for 2018, because we are coming up on basically, and I'll go into diversification here a little bit more in a few moments, is the filament barb, the Synodontis lucipendus, and the gold severum. So those are my top 3 favorites that I bred here in 2018. And I want to say by the time November, the second Saturday of November, which is the cutoff day, and unfortunately, I'm not going to make diversification. It just doesn't look to be that way at this point. I pretty much have already thrown in the towel there. If you want to get involved in it, it's quite disappointing because I'm literally 2 species off from making the diversification for the year. I'll be 1 or 2 species off. I would have to look at my list. And with that being said, it definitely had to bite my tongue on that one. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So what's nice is now that actually carries over versus before. I had the mentality where I wanted to accomplish it in 1 year. So the way the diversification used to work is basically in one 12-month time frame, you technically don't even get a full 12 months. So what I mean by that is if you want to get into specifically diversification, and again, I'll go ahead, and if you guys are watching this later on, I'll link it up here for you so you can check it out, talking specifically about diversification, so it makes a lot more sense. You will really want to start at actually the previous year. So let's say you're getting brand new, you bred some species, you want to get into the diversification award program specifically. You would ideally have already started. So starting now, I waited up until about 3 months ago before I started obtaining some of the species that I would need based on those families of fish in order to be able to qualify for diversification. Which I did have, but unfortunately, at some point in the process, I end up losing one or two of the fry, which today I would have been able to essentially and theoretically BAP everything except one, which is the goby. But unfortunately, I end up losing some tetras, some of my lucipennis, but I got a lot more lucipennis still growing out, so I'm good there. And the rainbow fish. So I was one away with the rainbow fish, one away with the Synodontis, and you need a total of 6 in order to BAP. So again, I got to pretty much throw in the towel at this point. But with that being said, it does carry over. But I wanted to try to accomplish it. I want to say in the history of our club specifically, there's only been 2 people that have actually hit it in 1 year. So if it didn't carry over, what that means is so you would have to start over. So anything within that family in order to qualify for the diversification award. So tetras, rainbow fish, catfish, labyrinth species, so on and so forth, is I would have to pick a different species that I didn't already breed in 2018 since it's already been logged in. So that wouldn't actually have carried over. So I had an aggressive goal. I want to say I should probably be ending the year after today. I should be around, I would have to look at my list again. I want to say around 23, 24 points, and then I should be concluding the year what I have still raising up to make sure that they're at the appropriate age in order to enter them in for the BAP. Is I should be around 25 to 28 points. My goal for this year was 40, which is still an aggressive goal. So again, I don't want to spend a ton of time going over everything I just mentioned. I know some it may not make sense to others. I just, it may make sense, maybe it doesn't. I just encourage you after this is done or at some point, just check out the videos I did talking about the importance of joining a club, talking about the importance of BAP and HAP, diversification, and that type of stuff. I wish I could join one. Always have meetings when I work. It's just one of those things. What's nice is with regard to that, it's nice to be able to find a club. And you have to keep in mind with our club, there's people that commute from 2 hours plus away, and they may not make it. But what's nice is once you actually develop a club is that most clubs will have it the same day to where they're not changing. So even with the same venue, usually you're going to be locked in with a contractual agreement when you do that for at least a year, if not 2 years, based on the venue or the location that you pick. And with that being said, it's nice because now you can plan it, a year, 2 years in advance to be like, okay, it's going to be at this same time, this same day, this same place, if that makes sense. So Dwayne, I mentioned it a little bit earlier on. Let me know, Dwayne. I just seen that you popped in here. We're all gonna head over. I know that you usually go live around 4 o'clock. So you let me know when you want to go, and then we can head over your way. Sharing knowledge is always good. I concur. All right. So let me know, you guys. Do you have any questions? All right. So he's going to be going live at 4. Right on. So that'll give us a good solid hour to sit here and chit chat. If you have any general questions for me, again, I always try to open that up for you guys. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions with regard to what I mentioned. And let's see here. And Bob, if you're still in the chat lurking, let me know if you want me to raise the filament barbs out for you for a bit longer, if you would like to start acclimatizing, conditioning them over to your water. If it was my recommendation, I would get them as juveniles. So like sooner than later, I can send them over your way. and I would start conditioning them and raising them up. It'll be a lot easier. I feel on the fish themselves. So there are very hardy species, but and if you want to see Bob, I think I can quick bag them up, and I can show you what they actually. I mean, if you guys want to see, I'll have to step away for a couple of minutes. I'm not really prepared for that, but I can show you because that'll be one of the groups I'm actually bapping this evening. And I can show you what they look like. Do epistogrammas always breed, or could I have a sneaker male or just a pair that doesn't like each other? Depending on the size, I wouldn't say they always breed. No, and a lot of it comes down to where you got them from. It really does. There's some fish that people would say, "How can you ever breed those fish?" And I'll just use Synodontis lucipennis as an example. There isn't actually a lot of people that breed those successfully. I mean, they might end up with, oh, I got to sneeze. Excuse me. They might end up with a couple of offspring, but good successful yields. To me, it's probably one of the easiest things that I have from a substrate type spawner over other species that I have. But again, I think it really comes down to the source for which you're obtaining them and conditioning. And of course, there's different tips and tricks that you can do to try to promote and inhibit some spawning. And I call it stress induction. So what that means is a lot of times when you switch up rearrange the furniture in a tank, for a lack of better terms, that could induce certain spawning behaviors. Now, a lot of that stuff really comes down to stress. That's why if you're shipping a fish or something like that, let's say it's a live bear, and in transit, they end up a little bit sooner than what you anticipated, end up releasing the fry. A lot of times that happens during stress. It could be a mouth brooder. It could be a number of different things, but that isn't uncommon to see that. So a lot of times by a change in environment could induce some of that spawning. But what I recommend with a lot of different fish, specifically with substrate spawners, so like an epistogramma, I would give them different options. So I'd use coconut huts. You can use terracotta pots. You can use different areas. Give them options in order to find. But like the key thing is, you already pointed out, it could very well be I would need to see a picture of what they look like, and that type of stuff. And it really depends on their size too. So, and then sometimes you could have a pair, but people have gone for years and have had known confirmed pairs, and maybe have even confirmed as far as spawning, and then they end up sending them someplace else and they never spawn again. So there's a lot of things that go into spawning, and unfortunately there's certain stress that can actually cause infertility within males if they're not conditioned appropriately and acclimatized appropriately and given the appropriate parameters. Over time, you see that with plecos. Once they get to a point, they just stop breeding. And I think with a lot of fish, I would always try to start out sooner than later. So if it is a young pair, you're already one step closer to, a spawn. And depending on how long you've given them, I mean, I would always give a fish, especially if it's a new fish, even if it's to the point that you feel it's of breeding age and size, is I would still give it, 6 or 8 months. I mean, it takes time. I mean, it really does. It doesn't always mean that you're going to be able to do it, in the first week or the first month. So don't get discouraged with it. Don't give up on it. You can try if you haven't done some of the things I mentioned. Another thing that you can try doing within reason is like a 3-day before like a storm front moving in is go ahead and do like a 50% or even a 25% water change, and then utilize by triggering that, mimicking that rainy season, is I would go ahead and add just some distilled or RO water. You could even do a 25% depending on what size tank that they're in. And if you do too big of a tank, for a group of the apistogrammas, I would honestly, if it was me, I'll be breeding those in a 10-gallon tank. If you provide too much surface area, especially with dwarf cichlids, a lot of times that can cause some issues too. It would either be a 10 or a 20. And again, this is just for breeding purposes. It doesn't mean that they're going to be living their lives out in those systems. So keep that in mind. So hopefully that puts some insight there. Juveniles sound best to me. Recently had a half dozen new juvies so they can raise up together right on. If we can see them, that would be awesome. I tried to check them out on your last live fish room tour, but too small to see. Yeah, it was dark. Pistols can be hard because need exacting setup, right size rocks, and whatever required sometimes. But yeah, just give them time. Don't get discouraged with it. I wouldn't be making any drastic changes though. You know, nice, slow and steady. Don't stress them out too much. We got Joel from New Zealand in the house. How you doing, buddy? So give me just a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the filament barbs. Give me about 3 minutes, and I got to get them into a container so you guys can actually see what they look like. So I will be right back. So yeah, it didn't take too long. All right, so let me pull up my screen so I can see, and if it will focus. It's trying to focus on me. There we go. All right. So hopefully you've seen those, Bob. I know there's a little bit of a delay, and I also grabbed here for you guys. These are the Pyros fasciatus, the gold. So let me pull up my camera again. It will focus. There we go. Aren't they cute? So those will also be bapped this evening. So they are about half-inch plus in size. One's close to 3/4. They just don't show up the greatest on camera. So yeah, we have about 25 more minutes, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions with regard to what I showed you. Any general questions? Now's the time. I don't get a lot of opportunity to actually put out any edited content for you guys, so that's why I enjoy to conduct these live streams, to have that one-on-one interaction, so I can actually take your guys' questions live versus having to try to communicate through, a video. Placo Whisper, how you doing, Mark? Joel has a question. I like you have a prelude to the question, about the question. All right, brace myself for it. You know what, Mark? You know me. Taking one day at a time, one moment at a time. Let's see. I'm waiting, Joel. All right. So Joel's question here is: do you think when raising a group of African cichlids from fry and they start breeding, you should leave at least some drops with them so they learn to be parents rather than strip all the fry? Yeah, I've tried both of those methods. I mean, I know with the Libidochromis, so in other mouth breeding species, given with those guys, in my experience, they'll breed right in the tank. I mean, the trick to me is I got driftwood in there and actually no like Texas Holy Rock or no rock structures or anything like that. And they're very engaging. You may recall a video, if you look back, it's the same setup I've had for past year or more now that I've shown in videos. But with the electric yellow labs, I just put a bunch of Nias grass, and now I just let nature take its course. So they still do breed in there, but I'm not pulling them. I'm just kind of letting nature happen. Now, does it influence the outcome? I honestly haven't ever seen a difference when I've tested it out, because I know with West Africans, and your other dwarf cichlids, so like your Pelvichromis, Cribinsis species, those I honestly have two bonded male and female pairs that will watch their young. However, as I've shared before, if I put food into a tank and they're supposed to be guarding their young, same thing with like Placos or whatever else you're breeding. If they go after that food, they're not good parents. They should never leave to go after food. They should be starving themselves and making sure that their young get food, not them. And I do have one pair of my Pelvichromis that will not go after food when they're actively guarding the young until the young get to an appropriate size. So what I do now with the Cribinsis is I have 3 different setups. All 3 of them are breeding, and the 2 are with groups. So they've all developed their own little bonds, and I'll have actually multiple groups. Like in my 40 long, I'll have one pair on one side of the tank, one pair on the other side of the tank. It's pretty much split right down the middle. The one group will stay on their side, the other group will stay on the other side. And I would just play around with it. But to be able to definitively say by removing, does that psychologically show them not how to raise? It's tough to say because I've tested both ways out. And when I've done it that way, I never seen any increase at all in a yield. I think the key thing to that is you want to force them by not just leaving the fry in there, but by adding something else in that system that they can chase. That they, that's why we use dither fish, to have something else in there that they can stay focused on and really teach them. And I would always try to leave them in there for 4 or 5 spawns and see how they do before I would actually start pulling and artificially hatching out and raising up myself. But that's just my take on it. All right, let's see. Do you think there is a behavior they learn that is ultimately helpful? Like, let's not eat the kids kind of instinct. I'm forming a theory if they almost never see fry just seen as food. Yes, in that basis, yes. If that's the way that you're referring to, I think I misunderstood your question, Joel. But if you are referring from that standpoint, then yes, I agree with you 100%. By never seeing fry in the tank, then I can see psychologically that component of where they would look at it as fry, because I see that with live bears quite often, not just substrate spawners. So my apologies. I guess I misunderstood the question. Jeremy, really like your help to see if my identification, gosh, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, looks correct. The one I think is supposedly found only in Bolivia. If you can send me a picture, Dwayne, or maybe if you're going to be showing it on your live stream. I actually have a group of Crebensis I'm raising fry from. Right on. Let's see. Right on, Joel. So now I'm just curious, Dwayne. Your last video. Okay. Let me see here. Now I'm curious. I can reach out. I got a couple of contacts too, Dwayne. If I can't come up with an idea, I can. If you can send me a picture, it would be best. And my email is either probably just message it to me on Facebook. If you can get a good picture of what you actually have, and then what I can do is I got a few contacts. VB23, hello. All right. What water conditioner do you recommend? I use Prime or Safe, which is the same thing. Safe is just powder form, same active ingredients. So, Safe is going to be your best bang for your buck if you have a lot of different aquariums. If you're looking for a fast way to just use a liquid form, I would just recommend Prime. I've used it for years. If it's not broke, why fix it? There is a lot of dechlorinators out there on the market, but that's the one I've used for well over 10 years. I was getting scared if City added chloramine. Yep, I would just check. I would just be utilizing that. The only one tank, then just get the Prime. Doesn't cost. You can pick up Prime if just about anywhere. So change 5 gallons a week. Yep, sounds like you're on the right track. But Dwayne, I did check that specific species out. The one that you're referring to is something that I've never looked into before, or have ever had any experience with personally. So it looks like a really nice specimen. I just wish that there was better information out there, more information. But do you think I should dose exactly 1 milliliter, a capful? Well, a capful, basically each little line I want to say is equivalent to. I would have to look. I don't even have to even use dechlorinators anymore because of how I have my reservoirs set up. So it's been quite some time, but just follow whatever the recommendations are on there. I wouldn't go any under or over. So whatever that equivalates to for 5 gallons. If that's like, let's say 1 capful treated 10 gallons, or I think it's like 1 capful is good for 50 gallons or something like that. So theoretically, each little line on the cap would be more or less equivalent to 5 gallons, if that makes sense. But it's been a long time. Let's see. Each line is a couple gallons. 1 cap is 10. Is it? Okay. I couldn't remember. Thanks, Bob, for the clarification. Yeah, I haven't used the Prime in a long time because I have the Safe, which is different in how you dose. But what's nice is the way our fish rooms are set up is I have everything ran through carbon blocks, and we don't have chloramines. So as far as chlorine or anything like that, I can remove it, and I let it, which would ultimately exhaust off anyways, due to the fact with not chloramine but chlorines. So everything sits in a 55-gallon drum. So I have everything dripped, and it's on float systems, everything else, and that's how I reintroduce water throughout the fish rooms. Mr. Zeipo, if I'm saying that right, hello. We got Charlie in the house. How you doing? Bob clarified. So I was right. It is 50 gallons for a capful. So each line should be equivalent to like 5-ish gallons. I only have chlorine right now. Yeah, I would just as a precautionary, I would just go ahead and use a dechlorinator. It's not going to hurt. Aquarium Thought said I may or may not have chloramine. I would just always be using a dechlorinator unless they're like on a well system. But yeah, it's always a good recommendation to use it. Most of us have been using that stuff for years. You are going to have some aquarists out there that don't believe in that stuff at all. And for me, I'm on the other side of the fence, or rather steer on the side of caution, specifically knowing things chemically that can really inhibit some really bad outcomes, specifically with chloramines, that you're going to have to use the dechlorinator for. But as I talked about before, if you check with if I'm assuming obviously you're on a municipal water source, if you check with your municipality through your public works department and you get the report, usually it's out on an annual basis, sometimes a quarterly or biannual, but you can get that report at any point in time. Usually go to the website and then you can check that way, but that doesn't show real time. As I've talked and I've been helping individual out with regard to actually some leaching off from a lot of being kind of more out in the country where things are being um, unfortunately chemicals in that are actually finding their way into his water system, causing a lot of issues with ammonia and stuff like that. So when that individual got in contact with his public works department, they just didn't, maybe somebody new, not quite understanding what he was looking for. But with that being said, it's just kind of using that as an example, is they steered him towards the report, which was actually results from last year, from 2017, and that's not real time relevant. What he needs is an actual real time test, which they're obligated to do if you ask them. That's why we pay for taxes, and that's why we have city water, and that's all through the municipality. So if you check with the city hall or with your public works department and say, hey, if you have concerns and you want to put your mind at ease, they do have tests available. Just get in contact with them so they can walk you through it. VB23 said add to new water, add to tank. I would just go ahead and add it to the tank as you're filling it. That's what I would recommend doing. So as you're getting ready to start filling that tank, just go ahead and add it, then add the water. But I've done it both ways. It's not like you're adding water and then waiting an hour and a half later and then adding it. That kind of defeats the purpose. I would just go ahead and add it as you're filling up the tank. But I've even got caught up in things in the past where I filled up my tank, done 50, 25% water change. I waited 5 minutes and I end up adding it, no issues. So again, if it was me, I would just go ahead and add it. As soon as you do that 10 or 20%, and then just before you start filling it up with your tap water, I would just go ahead and add the dechlorinator. Let's see. Do you have to worry about heavy metals in water? Sometimes. Again, we're fortunate enough. The only way to know is to check out what I was mentioning as far as the municipal water report. Is check out, see what's actually in your water treatment report. Some forward-thinking water supply municipalities are actually doing water reports by email for fish keepers. If you pay a small monthly fee too, just have check if they offer it. Right on. Thanks for the information, Dwayne. That would be a pretty neat resource to have available. I'll have to check into that, Dwayne. I am mixing two of my favorite guppy food at the moment, which is Cobalt Guppy Nano Bits and Norfin started together. Will this make a better meal for them? Possibly. I mean, they're both very good foods, very reputable foods. I haven't personally used Norfin, but I have used Cobalt, and I enjoy it. I mean, my go-to foods, as I mentioned before, Tetracolor granules, Hikari Gold, and Mega One. But I just always try to keep a balance. Good source of carbohydrates and proteins in the diet, and good vitamins. Then you should be good. Is a 30-gallon tank good size reef tank, or is it too big? I would go if it just on personal experience doing a reef tank. I can't speak too much onto that because I'm not into marine tanks. I've been down that road. I tried it out. It just doesn't appeal to me as a hobbyist. But again, I'm equal opportunity. I can tell you, I would go larger starting out if that's something that you're starting out in. I feel that it'll be much easier for you in order to have more opportunities for adding certain livestock, especially if you're going to go full reef. I would say definitely bigger, the better for you. That's just my opinion. So now size-wise, I would, if it was me, if I was going to go back and redo it, I would start out with a 40 breeder. I think 40 breeder is a perfect footprint, especially for a reef tank, especially the height. You can get a decent light for that, and there's a lot of opportunities as far as really making that look nice because of the footprint. I really enjoy 40 breeders. I've seen some really nice reef tanks using 40 breeders. And if you can go up to a 75, again, because of the depth, that would be another option too. But the only reason Yeah, like Dwayne said, a 55. The only reason I don't like 55s, your standard 55, is because of 12-inch depth. I would really try to kick that out to like the 18-inch depth. That's why you see like frag tanks are very, as far as height, a lot of them are only like, let's say 12 inches tall. So if you could afford, if that is your mission to do reef only or doing fragging, then I would recommend looking into like a 50-gallon low boy. I want to say Deep Blue also makes an equivalent to a similar size. I think they may be a little bit cheaper, 2 to 50 low boy, but it's a really, really neat footprint. Yeah, I want to say it's 2x4x10 or 12. I can't remember the exact footprint on that. As far as water companies adding, I mean, I would say that would be, again, I can't speak on behalf of the municipality with regard to how they're conditioning and treating things. I know with us, it would be more or less an ongoing ongoing treatment. I mean, in order to treat, depending on complete loss from train of thought. But let's see. But those are great questions, VB23. I mean, it's a relevant question. I would just check with your I would be checking with your public works department and just find out. Get more information from them. All right, you guys. Dwayne, if you can throw in your link, if you're still here, one of the moderators, if you don't mind grabbing Dwayne Kitchell's live stream link, if it's available. He'll be going live here in about 3 minutes, and I encourage you guys definitely go over there. It looks like there's 26 or so of you guys watching, and check it out. Dwayne has a wealth of knowledge, and if you want to pick his brain and talk to him about Peru, because he was on that adventure there in Peru a little bit back. So I encourage you guys to check it out. Let's see. The fish closet said it's funny, but I used to feed Omega 1 flakes and all my fish did not really like it. New fish took a lot longer to adapt to it. Same with new life spectrum, not a lover. Yeah, it just kind of depends. I can say the same thing about Rapashi. To me, it's one of those foods I will never use again. It's nothing, I'm not talking bad on the company, but it's just a food that I wouldn't justify spending that kind of money because I know the outcome isn't going to be any greater than what I'm already feeding. And the key thing, as I've talked about and really preached about before, is with regard to diet confusion and balance requirements. Same thing with skip feeding. And I could write a novel talking about skip feeding and importance of dietary needs and requirements. There's another specific item which most people would be probably a little curious to know. Maybe someday I'll do a video on it, but one that I can guarantee you causes nothing but issues, and it's not anything that we mentioned here. Just because of the studies I've done for 10 years, and I've hinted around to it before, but again, I'm not going to talk bad on specific companies or products. It's just one of those things that I know, depending on what species it is, it really only does long-term harm than any type of good that you're going to see out of it. Let's see. All right, you guys. So Dwayne just went live. There is a link for you guys. I'm going to go ahead and leave this up so you guys can follow that link. I know that we have a little bit of a delay. Thank you guys so much for coming out, joining me here. There's about 30 of us here today, so I definitely appreciate it. Hopefully you guys can take something away from it. As always, stay encouraged. Keep on keeping on. Happy fishing. We'll talk to you guys right back here on the next one.